This is Ethics Week, Day 3. I am Niquelle Allen, Director of the Office of Open Government, and I am going to present on the responsible use of AI or artificial intelligence for DC government employees. So let's get started. If you have any questions, I would ask that you wait to the end. And folks online, I think the best way for you to present your questions will be in the chat. I don't think we can unmute you. So if you would just take the time to put questions in the chat and we'll respond to you via this microphone, I will and read your question out loud or have one of the folks in the room do so. All right. So, artificial intelligence, I'm going to start with an overview of background. We know that we've talked about this a lot. I'm sure everyone has had some familiarity with it. So, in government, we are kind of about to launch using AI in what we do in our work here. So what is AI? AI is a set of technologies that enables machines or computers to mimic human intelligence and perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. AI uses algorithms, data, and computational power to simulate human intelligence. By leveraging AI technologies, computers can undergo training to perform particular tasks through the analysis of extensive data and the identification of patterns within that data. It works by simulating human intelligence using algorithms, data, and computational power. The goal is to enable machines or software to perform tasks that humans do, and it requires human intelligence, such as learning, reasoning, problem solving, perception, and language understanding. So there are different types of AI. What you all are probably most familiar with is last on this slide, which is a large language model. It's a model trained with self-supervised machine learning on a vast amount of text designed for natural language processing tasks, especially language generation. So if any of you all have used it, now in the district, which I'll talk about a little later, we have Copilot available, but there are other ones such as Perplexity, ChatGPT, and others that use this model. So the largest and most capable large language models are generative pre-trained transformer GPTs and provide the core capabilities of chatbots such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. LLMs can be fine-tuned for specific tasks or guided by prompt engineering, which we'll talk about as well. These models acquire predictive power regarding syntax, semantics, and ontologies inherent in human language corpora, but they also inherit inaccuracies and biases present in the data they're trained on. And that last part is something as government folks we need to be really keyed in on, like any bias, any inaccuracy, if we're using it in our work. So the other subsets of AI, machine learning, focuses on the development of algorithms and statistical models that enable computer systems to perform tasks without explicit programming. The primary goal of machine learning is to allow the machine to learn patterns and make decisions based on data. Neural networks, you may have heard of this subset focuses on AI models that are inspired by the structure of the human brain. These networks consist of layers of interconnected nodes, each layer contributing to a model's ability to understand increasingly complex features in the data. Deep learning is also a class of neural network with multiple layers. Deep learning has been particularly successful in tasks like image recognition, natural language processing, and playing strategic games. The last one I'll discuss on this slide is natural language processing. This subset focuses on enabling machines to understand, interpret, and generate human language. This subset is critical for applications like chatbots, language translation, sentiment analysis, and voice recognition. So these subsets overlap. So interdisciplinary approaches are common when using AI, and AI as a whole. This is when they talk about AI, this is what folks mean. So next I'll talk about the impact of artificial intelligence on the government. So it has a potential to significantly impact government transparency by enhancing accountability and openness, depending on how we as a government design it and make it available to ourselves and also the public. Open government advocates should look at AI systems' ability to monitor government operations, track service delivery metrics, and provide real-time feedback to foster greater transparency. However, when we use AI as a government, the public should be able to know which decision-making algorithms are used and why they're chosen. So that's a part of transparency with this new technology. And there should also be transparency in the data provided by the AI systems that enable it to think and reach decisions. Where AI decision-making processes are not easily understood, the government should disclose the underlying data, but also balance disclosure with individual privacy and intellectual property protections. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the government's response to AI. As you all may know, the federal government has deployed it in large fashion. So what they put out are presidential orders, and there is a new one, a set of three that have been released by this administration. There are also the National Institute of Science and Technology Standards in DC. We have the mayor's order on AI. There is a task force and board regarding AI, and Octo is in charge of the deployment of AI across the board in DC government. So first, the federal government response. So this July, the Trump administration released a comprehensive artificial intelligence plan titled Winning the Race, America's AI Plan. It aims to ensure the United States remains at the forefront of AI research and development, and the benefits of AI innovation have the greatest impact on American workers and industry and the U.S. economy. Alongside the plan, the administration issued 3 executive orders addressing AI development, federal procurement, and infrastructure. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which operates under the U.S. Department of Commerce, established the U.S. Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute. This entity sets guidelines on how AI developers may prevent AI system deployment from harming individuals, public safety, and national security. NIST has published frameworks for managing generative AI risk and securely developing AI systems. They also submit a report to the White House outlining the risk from synthetic content, excuse me. Last year, on February 8th, Mayor Bowser signed an order concerning artificial intelligence, defining AI's value and strategic AI plan. The mayor's order outlines actions that DC government may take to harness the power of artificial intelligence in government services and how DC government and the community can benefit from this technology. The mayor's order created and convened an AI task force, of which the Office of Open Government, well, myself as I'm a member, to work with agencies to produce key governance policies, procedures, and documents throughout 2004 and is continuing this year in 2005, and began a 3-year process of helping every agency develop strategic AI plans. This task force is overseen and organized by Octo. Also, there's an advisory group comprised of public and government members to ensure public oversight of the DC government's adoption of AI efforts. And the AI advisory group does have public meetings. It had several public meetings to hear from the public about their concerns and expectations around AI this past fiscal year. This is, if you'd like to go to the website to find out more, it's at techplan.dc.gov. And there's a video with Stephen Miller, who's our Chief Technology Officer, where he explains the plan and the tool, and you can get more updates on AI from this website. And we're putting it in the chat for those online. So I want to move on to just talk about the open government space again. So AI and open government. So why it matters for open government. DC's legal framework is still FOIA, so we're still accountable regardless of what technology we use. I'm going to talk a little bit of what could be a record with AI. Privacy considerations, exemptions and equity considerations, governance and procurement, transparency, documentation and public notice, records management and retention, and risk hotspots and mitigation checklists. So kind of in when we get to risk check hotspots, I am going to ask you all some questions, very brief questions, because we don't really know what the law is going to be. So I'm going to take this opportunity to see what you all think. So why AI in open government now? So AI is already embedded in search, summarization, routing, and eligibility tools. Open government laws will continue to apply regardless of the technology used. So some of you have been around long enough, you know, when we first got email and we text messages and things of that nature, we had to kind of adopt the laws to keep up with the technology. So the same thing will probably happen with AI. But we can assume that the laws will still apply in the same way. Public trust hinges on transparency, fairness, and human accountability. So that's a principle that we need to be guided by as government employees as we use any new technology. Early planning, which we're trying to do as a government, reduces legal risk and improves program outcomes. So as mentioned before, our framework is still FOIA, which is this presumption of disclosure of information, a reasonable search, and there's exemptions. So those would apply in the AI context. I did mention the Open Meetings Act. So one way AI could encounter the open meeting space would be with meeting notices, records, and enforcement. So one of the things I'll talk about later when we talk about prompts, so you could have an AI tool, for example, that analyzes a meeting, and we would want to know if that was done properly under the correct laws. And as I mentioned before, we have to look at to the mayor's order, Octo's AI and machine learning governance policy about responsible use and risk mitigation, as well as looking to the Office of Management and Budgets recommendations, federal use and acquisition guidance. So what is a record in the AI era? Big surprise, it's the same. It is still governed by the FOIA definition. So if we were preparing a record, I guess what is behind it would be any form prepared, owned, used, or in possession of, or retained by the government body. So for those of you who've used AI before, especially like there's a chat feature and you are literally having a conversation with the AI, and from our perspective, you may be creating a record. So examples of AI and workflows could be the prompts, the inputs. If you train using AI, that could be a record. Model inputs, summaries, recommendations, system logs perhaps, model cards, evaluation reports, impact assessments, vendor deliverables that are in AI, statements of work, and performance reports. Those are still records that the government maintains that might be put in a different form or put into this AI tool, so they could be subject to the open records laws. So one of the most important things that you should think about when using AI is, we have an obligation to keep things private if they need to be private. So when we're looking at FOIA in the AI context and privacy, we need to be guided by the exemptions to FOIA, which means what the government can withhold, and use it as kind of a guiding framework as to what data we should or should not be putting into this tool. So the FOIA exemptions that come to mind are personal privacy, investigatory records, trade secrets, privileged commercial information, deliberative process, which is kind of how we discuss things amongst ourselves. I don't know if it was going to become deliberative if we're talking to an AI tool, but that's something to consider in any memoranda that we have. So the balancing test would apply, and the balancing test here is whether the public interest outweighs our need to keep something private. Um, and also in the AI context, as we're going to continue to mention, there might be bias in the algorithm. So we as government workers need to be mindful of that. Disclosures may be compelled or advisable for accountability. So AI is provided by a vendor, so vendor confidentiality may come into play. So we need to look at trade secrets and things of those nature as we put that into AI. Procurement is something that's discussed in Mayor's Order 2024-28. It requires AI strategic benchmarks, procurement handbook direction. It includes contract terms for AI and disclosures as well as data rights. So that's future looking, but that's in the Mayor's Order. And the same thing, if we look at from a risk management perspective, we need to make sure to document our use and adopt, again, registers for how we're using so we can keep everything in a record so that if the public needs to know, well, how did we use AI to make a decision, that it's somewhere it's and accounted for. Also, if there's ever litigation that comes up, that's something else that we need to consider. Records management and retention, again, as we're creating AI tools, there is going to be records created using the tool, and we will need to revise our retention schedules to reflect using AI. That has not happened. Again, this is future looking, the types of things that we're going to have to do. We're going to look at our vendor systems and make sure they're in the proper format to do a search for FOIA, as well as to retain as records. And this would again create file plans for prompts, outputs, logs, evaluations, and public notices, as well as issues come up such as text searchability and retrieval as part of acceptance criteria. I'm looking at time. I only have 10 minutes. Hopefully don't go over. Okay. So this is where I'm going to ask you all to put your thinking caps on. So these are kind of risk hotspots that we've identified. So I'm going to just put these out there and see if there are any thoughts for or against. So one risk would be placing PI or sensitive data into the AI tool without privacy review. Is there anyone who can speak to that issue, how we may resolve it in the government, or what should you do as a government employee? Any thoughts? Silence.
Got it.
I'm gonna have you go to the mic so they can hear you.
Well, you could also just try and anonymize the data in some way, like if you have an algorithm that is kind of scrambling, like where's that appear for case number, like replacing names of individuals within the file, just having like privacy oversight and like masking technologies to make sure that the data are uploaded when be properly analyzed, but the one includes any information on that.
Anybody else? What about the next one? Opaque vendor models. We'll just go to that. We'll go over all of them. Opaque vendor models with weak audit oversight rights or over reliance on AI without human review or appeal. Anybody have any thoughts about that?
I think the vendors right now is Copilot for us, correct?
Yes.
And I don't know anything. I mean, Microsoft, doesn't have a great history of all the data that we're inputting right now is just in that web. We just need to be mindful because I think, of course, it's learning from what I input. Knows who I am. Data from ECGov. So we need right now what I'm using it for is just to work with visualization tools. So it's basically giving me formulas or helping me scenarios. Yeah, I mean, the band
Thank you for that. This is great working. Okay, hopefully they can hear me online. Is there something in the chat?
Somebody couldn't hear you. Oh, dead battery.
Oh, our mic's battery died. So hopefully, can't take the technology doesn't always resolve everything. Um, ask AI what to do about the battery dying. That's a good one. Okay. So here's some other use case scenarios that can or could resolve the issues that we were just talking about. Um, so what about a chatbot, eligibility triage chatbot suggesting denying benefits to certain applicants? So let me back up. So use case scenarios, that's kind of what we're doing now in the government to figure out how we can use AI tools and what their application are. So these are examples of use cases. So if you would like to raise your hand and just talk about them and what you think the problematic ones could be? Yes.
Can we ask the folks online? They're mentioned that Jeff, they can't hear the discussion for the thing. So can we ask someone in the chat to let us know if they hear us?
I assume they can hear you.
Let me
No?
no, because my
Okay.
phone is off.
So folks in the online, can you hear me? And I'll just repeat the questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
got you.
Thanks, everyone. All right, so I'll repeat. They want me to speak louder? All right. Sorry for the folks in the room if I'm projecting too much, but I'm going to project. So we're talking now about use case scenarios to pressure test for DC government policies. So what I'm asking is, if the government were to use these particular tools, what do you think the problems would be? What do you think the public would say? Yes. Right. Right. So for the folks online, the comment was basically the government should let the public know when it's using AI. I kind of put a disclaimer out there so that they know that perhaps their data or other data has been put into an application. So yes.
I would ask, how do you keep AI accountable? Highly trusted. Balance where, well, check and balance people. Why wouldn't we check and balance people?
Very good comment. Yes.
Say for like the top for triage chatbot, like I think anything that requires like a decision point, like I think it's fine to use AI that, but I think the public is gonna want to be final call on that. For the second one, in terms of like this is like a different government agencies. I think it would kind of be on like a scenario by scenario basis as to like whether it be something that needs to go to the public, for instance, like so like in PG where you use like the Stingray or essentially collect cell phone data, that's not necessarily something disclosing to the public. So if they're using AI as like a predictive and analytical tool for crime prevention, then I don't know if that's necessarily something that would have to be disclosed. That would be more like a legal matter.
Right.
And anything that was like already going to be public anyway, like using AI to summarize public hearing testimony, that's already public record. So I don't think there's any issue with like privacy or having that fed to like a vendor chatbot to do a summary on the fly because it's all going to be public domain anyway.
Right. Right. Okay. Wait, anyone else? We have anything in the chat?
Yeah, there were several
comments and a couple of questions.
Two questions up top.
Okay. What are questions?
So the first, there's a preface. I've attended several interagency meetings where federal partners used AI-powered tools to assist with note-taking and documentation. As we consider similar capabilities, how should we address the legal and intergovernmental implications, particularly when representatives from various levels of government are present? Are there specific disclosures, permissions, or protocols we should follow to ensure transparency and compliance?
That's a very good question. I would have to say that's an Office of the Chief Technology Officer question that they would need to answer within the context of their policy. Todd Smith is the general counsel there, so I would recommend reaching out to him with that specific question, and he should be able to give you guidance on that. And thank you for raising that. That's good to know.
And the next question is, shouldn't data placed in AI tools be de-identified or codified in a way to prevent PII, personally identifiable information, from being entered into the tool?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to get into that in the next couple of slides, kind of what you should do when using AI, but you should definitely not be putting any sensitive information into the tool or any private information into the tool.
And then the last question is there a step-by-step guide how to use the allowed AI models in DC government?
Well, that's a segue into the next part of my presentation. No, but I'm going to give you some tips today.
We got one more.
Okay.
Regarding the prompt as a record, how should we think Google search prompts and results? It seems like the current president is web search itself is not a FOIA record.
It's going to be, it depends. With AI, it depends on the use of the tool, whether or not it would be subject to FOIA. All right. So now we're going to move into actually using FOIA, using AI to make your job easier responsibly. So I will disclaimer these the artwork and things in here were AI created. So I was testing out the tool myself during this presentation. Now I can't speak to the quality of them, but this is working with what we have. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about practical use of AI. So we're constantly being asked to do more with less resources. So leveraging AI solutions from everything to drafting to scheduling can help you make the most of your budget. There are no special tech skills required to use AI, but we want you to use them responsibly. You may have noticed you have Copilot available. It's not going to be the final version of Copilot, but it's there for your use now. So I'm going to go through Copilot and other tools briefly. I think I'm kind of out of time, so I'm going to go over a little bit. But I think this is important. So one use is writing, editing, and brainstorming. So again, you don't want to put anything that's proprietary or private in there, but I would say to use it kind of as a way to jar your thoughts, to get you going as you're having to write policy, create training scripts like what I'm doing today, doing brainstorming, also checking grammar, tone, and reading on your documents. Visual design and multimedia. Now, I did this yesterday using Copilot. I will just say a caveat. When I did this the first time on Copilot, it left the I out of FOIA. So I had to prompt Copilot to redo it to use quote FOIA. So then I was able to get a picture that was kind of what I wanted. So this is one way that you can use the AI tool that we currently have. We use Copilot for that purpose. So yes, quick visuals for decks, newsletters, e-learning, generate icons or characters for scenario-based training, create a brand for your agency or program. So these are just kind of prompts that you can put into the tool and it will have an output. And actually on Copilot, it's going to keep asking you questions, which is what AI does. It's going to try to keep you engaged so you keep using the tool. One thing that you should do is stop a chat and move into a new chat, because if you stay in one chat too long, that's when you really start getting a bad result. productivity and summarization. So one thing that I tested it out with yesterday was taking a Washington Post article and summarizing the article. I couldn't, the current version of Copilot, you can't take it out to the web, but you can use something a document that you have on your computer already. So I am a subscriber to Washington Post, so I was able to use the article, but I had to download it and then put it into the system, and it was able to summarize the article. It created a visual summary, which is like a graphic of it, which again wasn't great because it had lots of misspelling. So, but if I needed to use it for a purpose, then I could talk to the chatbot and tell it how to redo the graphic to my needs. But you had to keep putting prompts in. Yes.
But in doing that, you never read the article to see if the chatbot was getting accurate, correct?
I did yesterday. Yes, we're doing the test. But it was accurate, yes. But that's a good point. I mean, you have to review it because I did also ask it yesterday about whether the government was open, and it said federal government was open. It said yes, and it provided me data to back that up, but it was data from the last shutdown, not what's currently happening. So this version of Copilot that we have does not go out into the web and get new information yet. It may at some point, but I think the best use of it is like for brainstorming, editing, not really legal, factual based scenarios right now with the current version of Copilot that we have. Yeah, I would not recommend using it for any of your like substantive work. Think of it like a smart seventh grader who has great graphic design skills. So again, the same thing, multimedia and video. I mean, this is where you really, as a safe use that is not going to get you in any trouble. So again, like if you have messaging that you need to get out, if you need help writing messages, if you wanted to create a graphic instead of doing a writing, but again, you got to check it, do quality control. And again, the only one that we're authorized to use in government right now is Copilot, but if you use things on your own time, you can kind of test your subject matter area to see if the tools are accurate or not in a safe way that does not compromise any confidential or proprietary information of the government. So here's some examples of brainstorming prompts, and I did this one. I didn't give you the output, but create 20 slogans for FOIA training for my agency. Create 20 slogans for FOIA training using compliance terminology and tailor it for lawyers. So one of the things that you can put in ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever tool you're using is you can tell it to act in a certain way. So act like a lawyer, talk to me like an engineer, talk to me like a seventh grader. Policy drafting, again, I go back to seventh grade level. So you can ask it to write things in a way. So if you do it that way, you can have a broader audience who maybe understand the district's message, but again, put non-public information in there. And here's other examples, and we'll have these slides available for you at the end. So I'm over time. So creating great prompts. So look at set the scene. Who is the audience? What's the format? You can assign the AI a role. Like I said, pretend to be a citizen who's needing help doing X, Y, Z. Be specific. Rewrite for clarity at an 8th grade level. Works better than, hey, AI, make this better. Refine and revise, ask for multiple versions if you're having it write something so you can compare the two to see which one is better. Again, if you are looking for something fact specific and you're working on it, anything that's confidential, like replace it with a placeholder or something that's not factual. Again, just make sure you do not share any confidential data with your AI tools. AI is very confident, but it is not always correct. So you always have to verify it right now. ask for citations and links to the data and check out those sources. That's another way to verify what you put in there. Track what you generate so you can explain or revise it later. And if your results keep getting worse, start fresh, meaning start over to like a new chat with the AI tool. And so in closing, let's let this tool work for you responsibly. Like I said earlier, pick one task that you're already doing and see if AI can replace it. Save good prompts that you may come up with for your agency in a shared library that people can use. And always review the output. Treat it again like a first draft by an intern, probably a high school intern that never finished a product. And again, use free resources that are available. Their YouTube videos, Reddit, and X are a great place to start for information on how to use the tool. And let me see if this will work. So let's see, advice from AI. Oh, I don't have the microphone, but let's see. I don't know if y'all can hear this.
Absolutely. That sounds like a interesting conversation to have with them. In a nutshell, when FOIA officers are thinking about using artificial intelligence, there are a few key things they should keep in mind. First off, they need to think about transparency and accountability. If they're using AI tools to help sort the records or to decide what can be disclosed, it's important that the process is understandable. The public and requesters should have a basic idea of how AI is being used in the FOIA process. Second, there's the question of bias and fairness. AI systems can sometimes inadvertently introduce biases depending on how they're trained. So it's important to ensure that any AI tools they use are tested and monitored to make sure they're not unintentionally favoring or disfavoring certain types of requests or certain types of information. They should also consider data security and privacy. Since you're already very tuned into data protection, you'll appreciate that any AI system handling sensitive or personal data has to be secure. They need to ensure that the AI tools comply with privacy laws and that any personal data is protected. Finally, they should think about legal and ethical guidelines. Using AI in government processes is still evolving, and it's good practice to stay updated on any guidelines or best practices issued by the district or federal authorities. So, in short, transparency, fairness, data security, and staying on top of legal standards are the big pillars. And of course, if they have specific questions, I'm always here to help.
All right, so that's AI's advice on AI. Okay, so thank you. This is the end of our
One more question.
presentation, and I see we've got a question in the back and one question online.
So Kelly says, overall, do you recommend DC employees to use Copilot since it's in-house versus another AI tool like ChatGPT?
Well, this is the ethics week, so I'm going to have to say use your DC government tools on your government time. If you'd like to outside of the government, now as I practice what I preach, I have a government phone, and this is my personal device, which you had ChatGPT on the personal device. Then you're free to do whatever you'd like to do on your personal time. I can say that the tools that are outside of the government, of course, are much better than Copilot. And we right now have just the basic version of Copilot. It's not, we're testing it out now to like do a full, we as the government, to do a full launch of the tool. But I would play around with Copilot. I mean, you've got it; it's free. But again, with those kind of guardrails for using. Question in the back. What about summarize? Right back. That's a good question. So the version of Copilot that we are using should be closed within the district government system. So it's not going out into the web or putting any information out there. So it's sort of similar to email, but it should fall under that same Microsoft 365 contract that keeps everything in-house with the district. With that said, I would be very cautious about it. I would, talk to all of the respective legal heads in your office to see if they're okay with it before putting it in Copilot. But I would probably err on the side of caution before putting anything that has kind of proprietary or privacy or any of those issues within the document. Yes.
responsibility do we have as employees to watermark if somehow something was created via AI?
Well, we haven't addressed that yet, but I think that you should, make a note of it. I mean, if it's something, like I said, this presentation, I just told you all the icons were made by AI. I didn't come up with them, or they weren't Microsoft tools. The best practice is from our perspective, is to be as open and transparent as possible.
Put it out.
True. That's true. That's true. You still, I mean, you still fall under all of the code of conduct. So you have to always keep that in mind, as you're using any technology, because we want your brain and your expertise to do your job. We have another question? Yes.
Are there any insights as to why the quality or accuracy of the AI breaks down in a chat over the course of time?
I don't have any specific information about that. I could just say anecdotal use. Yeah, so I can look into that, but I don't have a technical answer. Okay, any other questions? Any questions online? Oh, yes.
Oh.
You have another question?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
So do we sign in somewhere? Like,
Oh, the sign-in sheet is on the corner, and if you are online, we got you signed in. So thank you, everyone. We're going to move quickly to our next presentation. Is at 11 o'clock. So please stick around. Thank you so much.
I don't